Good evening, and welcome to another episode of Mowing After Dark here on the College Football Mafia Network. I am, of course, your host, Moen, joined by my co host, the one, the only, Rock and Rant. I have reorganized my sounds a little bit, added some sounds, and I got one special here just for Rock and Rant as soon as I can find it. Here we go.
Stand back. There's a hurricane coming through.
That's a good
Absolutely.
one, man. That's a good one.
How you doing tonight, Rock?
I'm good. I'm glad I put Ohio State on the back wall for you, man. If
Well, I got
had known.
Miami. I do have Miami on my wall too, right there.
Yeah,
Chris
I made some
Gamble.
tweaks. I added Texas Tech in honor of a couple of people and my expectations for them. I added Greg because he's part of the insane reason why I'm here. I forgot about Pickles and Becky, so there's a W up there. And in honor of Houston making Duke a football school, they're on the big screen. So shout out to them for making me look stupid for turning the game off too soon and having to watch all the highlights this morning. So congrats to any Cougs fans or Big 12 fans who are all conference fans, which is not my thing. But anyway, how are you, man? How was your week?
So far, so good. Got a lot of stuff coming in here. Got a lot of stuff going on. Programming note, just want to remind you guys this Thursday, we are crowning the ideal Big Ten candidates. Which of these schools is the Big Teniest of Big Ten? Who fits the mold? That'll be live this Thursday for members only. And let me go ahead and do this since we're talking about it. Let's go ahead and give some memberships now. We're going to give some free memberships to the community. There goes 5 of them. Edward Kennedy, Ray C., Steele Austin, Caleb Ramirez, and Mosito XC. You have all been gifted memberships by the College Football Mafia family to the College Football Mafia family. Welcome aboard. Make sure you guys are tuned in on Thursday at 8 p.m. Myself and you are going to go over the ideal Big Ten candidates for our members-only stream for this month. I hope you guys will enjoy it.
Was that center stage? Was there a random order to this? Was it like a shout out to Greg Pflugar's analogy? Do I got to think that we're like 3 steps away from the Miami perspective or what?
When I made this, I asked for a bunch of pageant contestants on squares on a stage, and I just kind of matched them up as best as I could with the dress color. So that's why Miami's over here, because I think that coral color is as close as it came to a Miami color. And yeah, so Clemson and Florida State just kind of ended up being in the middle. I don't know why, but definitely should be a good time at the Capo Cabana this weekend. That's our new members only stream ideas, Capo Cabana. So we got the House settlement. We're on the eve of House settlement. We've got realignment heating up. Boy, do I mean heating up. And we got a lot of other stuff. College football games this week, spring practices, spring games, spring showcases, lots of cool stuff going on. Portal is still open. People are still jumping out of the portal into the new spot. Texas Tech Red Raiders are out there spending some big money on Texas Tech. Everybody's trying to get that money in before tomorrow's hearing, which is, interesting to say the least.
Yeah, I think I get why everyone's trying to do that as quickly as possible, though the ones we're hearing the deals for are the ones who have been in the winter portal, a lot of the grad students that didn't have to make a decision right away. But because technically the new portal doesn't open up until I think the 16th or 17th for the spring. So this is the people who've been in for a moment or grad students that don't have to necessarily wait. I think you're going to see hot and heavy action because there's probably going to be a gap between whatever people think is going to happen tomorrow, even if it seems like positive before it's quote unquote officially done. So it wouldn't be surprising to me if spring portal people move even faster to make sure they're done before it's done.
Absolutely. And let's talk a little bit about tomorrow. We've got differing opinions throughout the college football universe here. Some people think today or tomorrow might be the turning point of college football. Some people think that it's a big nothing burger with extra mayo. That she's just going to hear this. There's going to be some procedural stuff that goes on, and it goes further down the road a little bit, but they're still going to have to tweak it. What are your thoughts on it?
I think it's somewhere in between nothing burger and the end of the world of former college football as we know it. Like, I just don't expect her to come in there, get some further detail on the objections. I mean, she's had time to look over all of those, but I believe, could be wrong, that there's going to be some degree of testimony. It's not just going to be the plaintiff and defendant's lawyers, but I could be wrong on that fact. It's supposed to be several hours long. So I'm assuming it's more than just two different, people going back and forth. But I personally don't expect for us to get as much tea leaves out of it or a final decision like it's the guy in Leon County Court making decisions on the fly randomly. I think it'll be a lot of people reading tea leaves, and in a few weeks we'll either get a decision or we could find out that she got super informed by the objections and needs some tweaks before anything can happen, and maybe that comes out tomorrow. That's my two prediction zones, but it's not nothing and it's not going to be everything is where I would put my money on if I had some to bet, but I don't after last week.
Yeah, you know what? I know there's several places that are going to be streaming the hearing here on YouTube. I think I'm just going to wait till the afternoon to tune in. I don't want to sit through a 6 hour. I believe it's a 6 hour hearing. I don't think I could
schedule for that long.
Yeah, I don't think I could sit through a 6 hour hearing, and then have to have everything interpreted for me. I think I'll just wait till tomorrow evening and see what was said. But I tend to side with you. I think you're going to find some stuff in there, but I don't think it's going to be earth shattering.
Yeah, I mean, we know what the theoretical workings of the settlement are, right? That's why she gave the preliminary approval. Now we're just getting the reactions for what were several significant objections. There were clearly some players that opted out, but there were also the bigger objections from some of the other sports, some of the coaches, some of the G5 and lower schools. And we'll see how she takes that feedback in what form and to what degree that we can read through tomorrow. If you haven't paid attention to her, she is definitely not like watching the guy who was in the Leon County courthouse. She's fundamentally different and reserved, and she doesn't come from a sports background. So I think she's calling balls and strikes as best she can see them. Whether you agree with the decision or not, we will all find out.
Absolutely. I want to reset a little bit here. Thank you all for coming into Mowing After Dark. We take your questions and comments. That's what this show is designed for. So please feel free to give us your comments on this House versus NCAA situation that we have going on here. Also, I want to say if anybody wants to support the College Football Mafia Network, you just click the little cash icon. From there, you can leave us a super chat, a super sticker, gift a membership, become a member, any and all of those things. The other thing that you could do for us is hit that like button. If you like what you see, hit that dislike button if you don't like what you see. But most importantly, hit that subscribe button. Give us a follow. Give us a share. Helps us grow the channel, and we appreciate it so much. Let's say hello to some people here because we got people rolling in. Nathan Campbell says, hi. Good to see you, Nathan. Joaquin Morales says, hey, Moen and CFM fam. Go Devils. Forks up ×3. Ryan Willie says, on Wisconsin. Rick, who calls into Greg's show all the time, is saying that the SEC and Big are destroying college football. He's half right. The agents and students will also be a part in the destruction of college football. Interesting take. You think this destroys college football?
No, I think having workers abused for 75 years while other people get rich is not anything close to that personally. But the agents, different conversation. But you want to solve the agent problem, do collective bargaining. Then there's constraints and situations and registered bases. So I agree, agents could be brutal in this and are part of the big problems with tampering and things along those lines. But if you, as an entity, don't want to do the things that would help rein that in, you have some responsibility in that as well.
Yeah, I mean, destroying. It might be destroying it as we know it or how we know it. You're not destroying college football, though. I mean, I've mentioned this several times on the channel. I think anytime there's been any kind of progress in college football, you've had critics saying that it's destroying college football all the way back to the invention of the forward pass. The forward pass destroyed college football. Now try and watch college football and imagine it with no passing.
Right.
MBM is here. He says, "Go Pokes." I will let you know something, MBM. I got a little something special for you tonight, but I'm going to wait to bust that bad boy out. I think you will enjoy it. The Big Lubbock, speaking of the Red Raiders, the Big Lubbock's in the house. First among people spending money to grab those defensive ends out of the portal there. Texas Tech is loading up and going hell-bent for leather.
They are making a roll for sure. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out on the field this coming season after a pretty good season last year. Bob
Swanger, Mr. Penn State Nittany Lions, saying, "Good evening, CFM. Good to see you." Joe Applewhite's in the house. He says, "April 7th is finally here." Almost. Got to wait a few hours on the East Coast here. Let's see. UNC grad is just happy Duke lost. Misery loves company. I can't imagine why a UNC grad would be happy that Duke lost.
UNC grad, you should check my Twitter or my other channels, Twitter or YouTube, and you'll see a shout out to Duke that I think you'll like as a UNC fan.
Daniel Gygax is in here in the house. Daniel Gygax has made some shorts that have been fire the last couple of days. If you're watching us on our homepage, make sure you click on the shorts link after and watch some of Daniel's great short content. Steele Austin says, "Let's go CFM." Good to see you, Steele Austin.
What's up, Steele?
A Ute. RT's on the house. He says, "Evening all." Good to see you, RT.
RT's the most mysterious person we see all the time here.
He is, but he's a good dude or a good chick. I don't know. Is it too much to hope for 0-2 for the SEC and Natties?
I'm pretty sure it's Alabama by 20 tomorrow night, no matter what.
Regardless of what happens, Alabama wins every hypothetical matchup. You know what? Screw it. I'm going Houston. And I probably doomed Houston for saying that, but I'll be rooting for Houston.
I think if you did one of those maps, if there's any justice left in the country, it's 49 states with red and a blotch around Gainesville in blue and orange. Because the rest of the state of Florida isn't even going to be pulling for Florida.
Tempest is in the house. The Seminole says, "Guten Tag, everyone." Guten Tag to you as well, Tempest. Caleb Ramirez is here. He says, "Hi, all." Good to see
What's
you,
up, Caleb?
BYU football's here. He says, "What's up, everyone?" Good to see you, Shonsky. Kenneth Evans says, "What it be? It be what it be." MBM giving us the O face. Could use the U-O face on that one. That's one of our members only emotes. Tempest says you need an OTC sound effect. Okay, he wants one for the original tribal chief. We'll have to look that one up. See if we can't find one. Need an Oklahoma State pickup there. Okay, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Tell you what I'm going to do for you. How's that? Watch him go bang, bang, bang here.
That's a good one.
That's
RT,
a good one.
You know, we're both bribable, you know. We've said it. We can be bought. You know, Big Lubbock got Texas Tech up there just by showing up on my other show. So, you know, it's low-hanging fruit.
Right. And there we go for RT and for MBM in the chat. It's got a special sound effect too.
Well, I'm a badass cowboy living in the cowboy days. Wicky, wicky, scratch, yo, yo, bang, bang. Me and Artemis, Clyde, Frog, Gold, Sam, Stammer, Hayek from the Big Metal Spider. A wicky, 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 fresh cowboy from the west side.
That's the
so
best.
There you guys go. I got those just for you two, RT and MBM. Got a little Oklahoma State flair on the channel for you guys.
You don't need anything on our back walls if you're getting that one.
BYU football says, so glad all those damn tornado threats are done. Yeah, rough week for a lot of the country. Rough week.
It was a rough week for the parts of the country in a brutal way that way, and lots of other rough ways.
Yeah. Nothing but rain here in Ohio. Nothing but rain. Antoine Johnson's on the house. He says, hey, y'all. Good to see you, Antoine.
What's up, man?
Steele Austin, you're welcome for that membership. Not a problem. Make sure you're in the chat on Thursday when we're doing that presentation. Flying Atlanta Knoll. Good to see you. Glad to see my Knolls represented on the wall. There you go.
You know, people, I think I'm pretty fair for Miami fans and Florida State fans. Other people's opinions might be different, but like you're not hanging upside down like, you know, those guys.
A certain team. Oh, now we definitely know why you want Houston to win. I didn't even think about
Absolutely.
that. Tempest.
Absolutely.
Tempest says ours will start when hurricane season starts. BYU football, though we can get them any time of the year. I played the hurricane sound effect a little earlier. I don't know if you caught that, Tempest, but there is a hurricane coming through. Daniel Gygax wants to know if the Nothing Burger has cheese. If it does, Greg Pflugar will not eat it. He does not mix cheese with meat. Big Lubbock. I don't think the judge will do anything. I think the can will get kicked down the road. Wild, wild west remains. Wow, that's some kismet or something there. Also says, Rock, the wall looks good. Jan Holt
like
joining us all the way from Slovenia. If you guys don't know Jan Holt, he's
my best friend. He's my pal. He's my homeboy, my rotten soldier.
Good to see you, Jan.
See what happens when people do memberships and donations and super chats. Moen gets a soundboard with more than 5, and the world changes.
I've got
for
it
everybody.
organized. I've still got a bunch more I've got to add, but I spent most of my day organizing it and putting new stuff on the Moen After Dark slate here. Brett Taylor, the question will be, regardless of what happens tomorrow, how will they regulate collectives from paying players in addition to the payments the schools give them? A great question. I don't have an answer.
That's what my whole thing is. I don't really know how forget about the collective. If Pepsi calls Moen directly and says, I want Moen to drink Pepsi on Moen After Dark, one person to one person, because Moen has a social media following, which he does. It may not be the largest one known to man, but it's also more than most. I'm not really sure how a party that's not party to that can decide that he shouldn't have gotten $10,000 to take one sip of Pepsi on his show. And that's the thing that's baffling to me about the entire settlement with the judges. I don't know how a judge can approve limiting people who are not even part of the collective class in the class action to be prevented from that. Like they can participate in the revenue sharing, but that's separate thing. That is two people, a business and a person making a deal. Like, I'm not really sure. I get it from the, hey, I call the school collective perspective, and the school collective brings offers to the players. That I understand. So I don't know, Brett. I'm super curious about that. And I don't believe personally that if this all gets settled tomorrow in her court, that specifically is going to actually last the test of time without there being a lawsuit in about 26 minutes after.
Absolutely. And if anybody's listening out there from Coca-Cola International, I would never accept a $10,000 check from Pepsi when you could just send me free cases of Coke Zero and Cherry Coke Zero.
That is true. I could save. It would cost me more money to take the 10,000 than the lifetime supply.
Yeah, I'd say I probably go through. I probably drank $10,000 worth of Coke Zero and
There's an orange creamsicle special flavor right now. It's actually pretty good.
No, I'll pass. Cherry Coke Zero is where it's at. Always try to get the cherry. Except they don't make it in 24 packs. Come on, Coke. Do the right thing. Day One Rob says San Diego State University muscle. Okay. That fist icon right there.
I actually think that's Day One Rob putting his arm around the athletic director's mouth to keep him quiet for a bit.
Good point. Yeah, if you missed that, it was about 6 weeks ago, maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago.
Yeah, round 2 of the, hey man, just you're right, but maybe just be quiet.
Doing yourself no good.
No good.
Oh, look at this. We got another poke in here. Taylor Mott. Go Pokes, OSU. Well, you got to see the Dancing Cowboy in the Wild West song. So there you go. I hope we brought a little joy into the Oklahoma State fans' life tonight. Hey, we got a new
Hey.
member. Flying Atlanta Knoll. Good to see you, Flying Atlanta Knoll. Thanks for becoming a member. It is much appreciated, sir. Let me see if I've got a new sound effect I can give you. We've got Cartman feels good. If that'll play. If it'll play.
Yeah, dude, you gotta try it. It makes you feel good.
Thanks for becoming a member here. We again have that members only stream this Thursday at 8 p.m. Make sure you tune in for that.
Hey Mo, and I tend to take dunks on Mr. Gundy at Oklahoma State, but this week is not one of those weeks. I thought that his response to the NCAA putting the no button onto the spring game between Colorado and Syracuse was perfect. Like, they should have just done it. What is the NCAA going to do?
Yeah.
He doesn't want to worry about rules about an entity that can't enforce the ones they have anyway. Like, I thought that was one of the 2 wiser coaches' takes of the week, and that's not something I normally have had a chance to say about him this week. There was also a really good quote from a Gramblings coach about like how he thought the players and all the situations should work out, and it was probably the most rational quote I've heard from a coach in this entire last year or two around the whole paying players situation and dealing with transfer portal up and out of your program.
UNC grad says, did the old Big Ten West allow passing? They did. It was just frowned upon. Some places have run first offenses. Some places have pass first offenses. The old Big Ten West was the first only punt first offense. Punting is winning. And Illini Ted can tell you all about it. Good evening, guys. All this waiting on a pack deal seems familiar. Yeah, I don't know. They just can never seem to get their shit together.
That was wild this week with the Texas State situation and the soup analogy.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to listen, Becky says they only got offered a quarter share to be in the to the Pac-12. I think that's disgraceful. I really do. That should be just for getting you into the Texas market. That should be a full share.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. They either have 24 days, 31. They either have 55 days or 85 days. Because I can't remember if it's June 1st or June 30th that they have to get another football member in order for the conference to be where they need to for the following season.
Yeah, well, let's see how long they keep messing this up. They're probably going to end up with New Mexico or Sac State. Texas State, if you're not getting a full share, just wait. Potentially join into the AAC or the ACC that backfilled. John Boxleitner is here. Houston is America's team this weekend. I'm not going to lie, I picked Duke, and I was rooting for Duke. But that being said, I will root for Houston against the Florida Gators.
Wise man.
The Big Lubbock says, I heard from a source, Texas Tech is trying to build a defensive line like the Philadelphia Eagles. If you notice, not many NFL O-lines could handle their rush. Same concept against the Big 12 offensive lines. They might. I mean, they're spending enough money to do it.
They'll be able to do the tush push from 10 yards out at this rate.
Yeah, that defensive line they're putting together, that's something. That is something. I think Texas Tech, hey, I got to say it, Texas Tech, with this portal haul they've brought in, you have to believe that they got to be one of the front runners in the Big 12, but I will tell Texas Tech fans to be cautious. We said the same thing last year about Florida State at this time. MBM says pistols firing. Yes, sir. Tempa says he was in Miami when Irma hit.
Hurricanes, no bueno.
What's good, boys? Hit the like button. Thank you, Flo. That is much appreciated, sir. Let's see if we got a little something here for you. Maybe. Here we go. Here he is. We got a little something here for Miami Flo as well. Because that's just the way we roll. And I won't play the hurricane sounder again, though. He's going to have to make do with that.
Sebastian doesn't really talk anyway, so it's okay.
Here's one from Stu Austin. Rock and Rank, curious what your thought about Scott Moore's take the other night that the SEC would absolutely go after Miami. I found that interesting and had only heard Miami being chalked to the Big Ten.
Look, I am not on that train. There are people who I know and respect who I know have some degree of information or connection, second, third degree away, Miami side, that have said that the SEC is not as a closed concept as people might think, but I've heard way more for forever that that would be like, an extremely unlikely situation. So I kind of err on the side of that. So I don't know where Scott was getting his info, if it was more just a vibe, or if he has people who are saying that. But I was pretty surprised about that specific comment. I've always thought that Big Ten was like the spot, and it would take extraordinary circumstances for it to go in a different direction in terms of the SEC, at least. What did you think about that one, Moen?
I got on shortly after that to help Nate out, and I just don't agree with it. It doesn't make sense to take two schools in Florida. You're going to have three schools in Florida in the SEC.
I think it makes sense. I agree. I think it makes sense if you're just about, we don't care. We're not worried about markets. We're worried about matchups and maximizing ratings of games and less about markets. Then I think there's an argument of those brands against those brands. But yeah, other than that, I'm like on the same page with you based off of everything we've seen so far in realignment strategy in markets.
Right. And one of his main arguments in the whole deal was that you're going to build a wall to keep the Big Ten out of the Southeast. Unless they go to 24 teams and add Georgia Tech and North Carolina State, and Duke. There's so many teams in the Southeast, they can't add them all. There's no way to build a fence entirely around the Southeast if you're the SEC. And I don't know that you want to. Why not just go get North Carolina and Virginia and then balance it out with your football ads in Florida State and Clemson?
I mean, really where it all comes down to is we could do all – there's raw numbers on dollars, right? But every scenario can change because matchups can change and the composition of somebody's audience can change. There's probably at some point, ultimately, for the SEC and Big Ten, there is a comfort level into the number of teams they want in their company, right? Because then you can make an argument about all the other things to justify why you would go down this route or not. So to me, the biggest thing is who knows whether the Big Ten really is okay going to 24 or if the SEC is really only won't go higher than 20, because that answers so many things for every school scenario, right? It's something I've been like working on. Like that to me is the number. Like if there was one thing I would want to find out is deep down in their souls, how far are they willing to expand? Because then you could take almost any team on the board and give them like, if it goes to 20, you have this kind of shot. This is who you're competing against. At 24, you have this kind of shot. And that's like way more interesting to me than what the present media value is, even though I believe in that stuff. As you and I have talked about, and some degree have had arguments with Nate and Udon, is Florida State's value in the ACC at $70 million is, to me, not Florida State's value playing an SEC schedule where the cumulative ratings effect goes. So anyway, that's my thing. That's the number. If someone said you can get one number from anyone, it'd be like, what is the Big Ten really willing to expand to if they got what they wanted ultimately, even if it was a few years down? Because then you can see how the dominoes really fall. Yeah,
and I think that's true of everybody in the ACC. I think you can't take their ACC valuation and just transpose it over another conference. If you join the Big Ten, if you join the SEC, your value goes up.
Correct.
Now, the argument is, does the value of the entire conference go up? I
It
think if
doesn't
you
have
got
to go
enough,
up right now. It
right?
has to
But
go up in the next deal.
if you're making compelling matchups, it goes up.
It
It
does,
just
for
does.
sure. If your average ratings go up because there are less rotational things of, and no disrespect, I'm just Indiana and Purdue prior to this past year, right? And I know it's a big rivalry in the state, but didn't necessarily have national appeal. If that kind of game happens less and more of Florida State and Penn State, of course, you still got to play the really great schools that have historically drawn less, but the cumulative ratings go up. Everything changes in that regard. There's also, by the way, there's also protection on the downside. The world changes really quickly in a week, economically as well, right? Depending upon how you look at things. So having those brands come in could also protect you on the downside. Should media rights go down, right? You fall less. It creates a higher floor too, even if it, depending upon situation, may not raise the ceiling, but the ceiling could be getting lowered depending upon timing on any of these things as well. It's unlikely, like that's not what the history of sports media rights have been through many different eras. As we've talked about before, I think only the NHL ever had a down round, and they did some weird joint venture kind of thing that was a bad decision in terms of media rights. So we shall see.
Absolutely. And I want to bring up another point, but first we hit 69 live viewers. I'm giving away 5 more memberships to the College Football Mafia family because I've got the humor of a 5th grader. So here we go.
It's
5 more
it's just
memberships.
numerology. It's numerology. You don't
Numerology.
have to.
You're right. It's very Pisces. I'm a Pisces, and it's very Pisces. Let's see. Kenneth Maynor, Cranky Tiger, Dallas Marquez, Hawk and Nil, and Sam8911SK were all gifted memberships to the College Football Mafia family by the College Football Mafia family. Just a reminder, tune in live this Thursday for our first members-only live stream under the banner of Capo Cabana, crowning the ideal Big Ten candidates. That's a members-only stream. You got to be a member to tune in there. So any of the 5 people who just got memberships, you can tune in and watch myself and you break down. Right now, it's a 24-page presentation, guys. I am letting you know in advance. It is deep. It is thorough. I don't know how I can do much more of it, but definitely tune in and check it out. Now we'll get back to this. I will add this. I think the SEC and the Big Ten already have game theoried everything out. I did a little bit of computer coding in my time, and there's always this if-then in computer code. If this happens, then this happens. I think the Big Ten knows exactly what happens if the SEC takes 4 in one stroke, like I believe is going to happen, that they grab North Carolina, Virginia, Clemson, and Florida State. I think the first call the Big Ten makes is to Notre Dame. And I would not be shocked if Notre Dame can't answer that call because they're too busy calling the Big Ten. That value is so tied to having matchups against Florida State, Clemson, and Miami on their TV deal. And that deal is tied entirely through the ACC.
Right.
If 2 of those schools go, I mean, if Miami stays in the ACC, which I don't believe, I would think that I would think Miami would go to the Big Ten in that situation. So Miami would be, we'll say Miami's number 19. I think Notre Dame would probably be number 20. I don't think that they could continue to hold out and be independent under that scenario. I think they would accept it. I think they know that that's not a great deal for them to try and remain independent. NBC's not going to be happy with the deal they have with them. All due respect to Navy and Army and all the great service academies, you're not exactly lighting up the, you're not lighting up the ratings board with those matchups. Northern Illinois, obviously Northern Illinois beat them this year, but still not a great matchup. I mean,
no, the ratings blew up as social media spread the word, and the fourth quarter ratings were really excellent, but it wasn't like a must-see before a game started outside of core Notre Dame fans, which is, of course, a huge fan base.
Yeah, it's a national brand. I mean, anywhere there's Catholics, you're going to find Notre Dame fans. Chicago, huge Notre Dame presence. Boston, New York. Major media markets have Notre Dame fans in there. So And I think it's interesting. Stanford, I always used to think Stanford, but the more I think about it, if the Big Ten really wants to get there and get the best matchup possible in football, I think you would take the Miami Hurricanes and Notre Dame. Already have a natural rivalry there. You got Notre Dame and Miami. A lot of Notre Dame's existing rivalries would still continue to exist in the Big Ten. You'd have Notre Dame USC, Notre Dame Michigan, Notre Dame Purdue, Notre Dame Northwestern. That's a rivalry, believe it or not.
Yeah, Michigan State, though it's been paused for a moment.
Michigan State. Lots of.
I mean, they played Michigan State more than they've actually played Michigan.
Yeah, and I mean, if they expand beyond 20, they grab a Georgia Tech. That's another one that's played Notre Dame traditionally quite a bit. Georgia Tech and Notre Dame. If they keep expanding and get Stanford, at that point get Stanford. That's another traditional rival. So I think.
Do you still?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I think that this is going to, if the SEC takes those four, if the SEC does one fell swoop and goes, we're taking North Carolina, Virginia, Clemson, and Florida State, I believe within a week you would have Notre Dame accepting an invitation to join the Big Ten.
Do you believe the SEC is your, gut, reading tea leaves, whatever you want to call it? It's an opinion, so you're allowed to have one. Do you think SEC is the first mover?
I do, because they have the money right now. They can get everybody in as a pro forma.
Right.
In addition, there's other ways they can generate revenue. If they add more inventory, I don't know what the parameters of their ESPN deal is. I mean, they could probably go out and get another media partner for something. Might not be much, but every little bit would help in that situation. The Big Ten, unfortunately, unless they renegotiate that deal or extend that deal, they don't have any money to add anybody right now. They really don't.
Right.
But if you add Notre Dame, Notre Dame has a clause in the contract right now that adds so much money. If you add Notre Dame, let's just say for the sake of argument, it's Miami. I'm not saying it's Miami. I'm saying for the sake of argument, it's Miami. You add Miami, you add Notre Dame. The money that Notre Dame brings in that contract, Notre Dame would have a full share, Miami would have a full share, Oregon and Washington would immediately get bumped up to full shares. Everybody would be made whole with that one transaction, and I believe you would still have money left over. You would actually increase the payouts for everybody within the Big Ten.
Yeah. The only reason why I ask is just the optics, and maybe it doesn't matter ultimately. It doesn't ultimately, of any perception, Notre Dame aside, of that you got leftovers, so to speak. Like bigger brands went first and you got the fifth of your choice, versus if you move first, you get whoever that is, Notre Dame aside, we can put them on their own island. It feels different, right? Like that wasn't really a thing when it came to the Pac, right? Taking USC and UCLA and then Oregon and Washington, because the SEC had been very clear about wanting to keep a contiguous footprint. You can maybe make an argument that if Big Ten had Texas aspirations, they should have tried to reach out for Texas before the whole SEC thing went down to not feel that, but maybe it's a little bit different. But now you're starting to get to a place where you're choosing schools potentially to join from the same general area, the same conference, where overlap of territory is constant. So just it's one of those, like, do people care about those optics for the league or not? And going first makes the narrative a little bit different.
Yeah, and the Fox Sports basically had to carry the freight on Oregon and Washington, and NBC and CBS has greatly benefited from those additions. I'm sure the Big Ten would love to have as many big brands as possible, but Fox isn't going to cover the freight. They're not going to cover full share freights for some of these brands. They can't. Right. And NBC and CBS so far have shown they're unwilling to pitch in and add any more to the deal in order to get those brands in. I do think adding a Miami, I think, is very beneficial for the Big Ten partners, including NBC and CBS, especially if you add a Notre Dame. I mean, Miami, you can create new rivalries with Miami and Ohio State. Look behind me. The often mentioned that is not pass interference is pass interference call. Penn
Not
State and
pass
Miami.
interference.
Penn State and Miami. Those great matchups when Joe Pa was the coach there and matched up. I think he played Schellenberger in one bowl, and I think he played Jimmy Johnson in one bowl. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you've got Penn State, who is unrivaled, quote unquote, in the Big Ten. That's a natural rivalry there for Miami. As far as travel partners, Miami might not get one. Miami just might have to travel. UCLA has to travel. USC has to travel. Washington and Oregon both have to travel. I think traveling is just going to be a part of being in the Big Ten moving forward. It's something that people are just going to have to deal with and figure out a way around. So I see in the chat, Skaven yes also mentions Nebraska versus Miami. Yeah, Nebraska, a lot of bowl games against Miami.
Yeah, and way back when, Miami played Michigan several times, played Michigan State several times. I'm sure that there are a few others. I'm just not thinking, not with the frequency of those others. And yeah, like if you're Miami or Florida State, ultimately you don't really care. Like you just need to get where you're going to go. Clemson for Miami, they're historically, though not recently, used to it, right? They were the multiple hours away from their closest rival in the Big East days. And if you've ever driven from Tallahassee to Miami, it's a lot longer than people think. You cross that Florida border, you think you're in Florida, and you got mega hours to go. So it's a normal thing.
Absolutely. Doing a quick reset here before we get back to more questions and comments. If you're watching us, make sure you give us a like and a subscribe. That is much appreciated. If you want to support the channel, you can gift a membership, become a member, or leave a super chat. We appreciate all the support you guys do in helping us keep the lights on around here. And I think that's it. I think we'll cover it. That'll cover it for the end of the show. So we're good. BYU football says, I just moved here to Kentucky, and these storms are fucking vicious. They are, brother. Hey, they are. Listen, I live in Southern Ohio. I'm stone's throw from West by God, Virginia. And, we get rain, heavy snow. We get rain. You'll get some heavy, wet snow this way. But summertime is rough. It's rough. You got to keep your phone on for the weather alert. Because
definitely not getting better.
Yeah, they hit you in the middle of the night here. That's the worst time. You can't see anything. And, yeah, that's the scariest time. Cranky Tiger, haven't seen you here before. He says, you will never kill the bag man. That's true.
You will not.
All I want to know is when can FSU fans piss on Snuggy Hill for the last time? That one went over my head. You might have to explain that one to me.
I'm not even sure. I honestly don't know.
Okay.
I could sit there and act like I know, and it's probably going to be very obvious, and Thomas is going to let us know, but I actually have no idea what he's referring to.
Good to know. I thought it was a Miami, Florida State thing. So,
I mean, if it is, like, I have no idea what the lore is on it. I know what the boat burning is. I don't know if that's like a Boston College. I mean, like Bunker Hill, whatever. Like, I have no idea. I'm going to be educated tonight by Thomas. It'll be the one thing I learned today. So please let us know in the comments.
MBM says, great show. See you Thursday with the 50-piece super chat. Hold on a second. We got to get that cowboy back out here. Where is the cowboy? OSU cowboy. Here he is. I will let you know that I did get the Cartman suite, but it's a short one.
Sweet.
So we'll go ahead. I know you guys love this the first time. You're going to get the special Wild West song.
Well, I'm a badass cowboy living in the cowboy days. Wicky, wicky, scratch, yo, yo, bang, bang. Me and Artemis, large frog, go, says, I'm a high act from the big metal spider. A wicky, fresh cowboy from the west side.
It's a long one, but for a 50-piece, he absolutely deserved it. We were going to let that man cook. As soon as I can figure out where I put that one at. General, let him cook.
Let him cook. Let him cook now. Let him cook. I said, let him cook.
Thank you, MBM, for your continued generosity, dropping the 50-piece on us on a Sunday evening before the house settlement. Thank you, MBM, for your continued support. Yes, we will see you on Thursday. Should be a fun show. Can't wait to see all the members in there hitting us with the data and the feels. All right.
Much appreciated.
Much appreciated, MBM. Rock appreciates you as well. He's just so awestruck by your 50-piece donation, he just couldn't say anything.
I'm just trying to think like what oil company MBM works at. Owns.
Yeah, I was just going to say, what was the guy's name? T-Boone Pickens. Must be T-Boone's Pickens.
It's the ghost of T-Bone. It's an automated bot that knows how to take care of people.
Go Black 45. Is Bomber going to have his Duke buddy on Monday? I don't know who he has. No, he has a Fox Sports guy, I think, is on this week. I don't know. Follow Nate on Twitter at B12 Mafia. He should be able to tell you what the schedule is. I do not know what the exact schedule is this week for him. I believe he's having shows on Tuesday and Wednesday. Waiting for the day San Diego State goes FBS. Oh, that's cold-blooded. Cold-blooded, man. Where's the Law and Order sound effect? That was cold-blooded, Tempest, man. You might get charged for that one.
Never cold. It's never cold in San Diego.
There you go. Coke Cherry is the bomb. It's got to be the zero. Coke Cherry. Zero. It's awesome. You know what it does? It goes great with a little bit of Georgia Tech. Just taking a little pull off the bottle there. All right, let's get back to it here. I think I'm losing my space plot. I'm losing the plot.
I got
you. Cranky Tiger says, I'm a man. I'm 40 inches. Okay, dude. Right on. I feel sorry for your wife. She must be a giant. I don't know. Coke Zero is good, but Pepsi Zero is better. Steel Austin, that's the kind of talk that get you banned around here. If you haven't tried Pepsi Zero before, you're missing out, although Dr. Pepper Zero is better than them all. If I'm having a full flavored soda, it usually is a Dr. Pepper, which goes great with rum, by the way. But yeah, no, I can't get into Pepsi products, man. I tried them. I just don't like the taste of Pepsi. I never have. Scavin yes says, sounds like an Iowa offense. Trick question. Iowa doesn't play offense.
Passing at least, right?
There you go. Joseph Kurlagon Jr. I hope I pronounced that last name right. I like the College Football Mafia live videos. They are always informative, have great topics all the time. We try our best. We're getting into more things here. We've got some more things planned about ACC realignment, implosion, who's going where, why they're going there, what the numbers are. We always like to have good data here. And then we've got Devil Frog saying, Tech is the king of off-season hype. Same old song, different off-season. Buddy, I don't know. They're spending money.
Yeah, there's a fundamental bank account difference going on there too. Now they still have to deliver on the field. We've seen plenty of schools spend money and not get there. We see that in pros. But yeah, I'm definitely thinking Texas Tech is probably going to be at the top of the Big 12, close to it. On paper, games still need to be played.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, Devil Frog. I was going to make an AI video of a bunch of highlights and see if I could get Texas Tech to cut me some of that money, and then show up as a fat 44-year-old man with a bad back. But make sure I keep the money. Buenos noches, mafiosos. Gracias,
What's up, Jeff
Fuller. Good to see you. Jeff Fuller, another one you should be following on Twitter, JJ Fuller 72. He loves those number crunching. He is a data nerd like our friend Wild Ute is. Just did a show with Bomber, I think last week, or it was the week before. It was last week. Tempest says, I like the Big 12 picks you did, Daniel. Yes, new short video out from Daniel Gygax right here on the channel. Make sure you watch that after you watch us. Thomas Coker, hate University of Florida. The Gators suck. Malzahn has another game breaker at QB again. The U down symbol. Miami is going to Big 12. Whew, that was savage, man.
Yeah, I would respond back, but I don't want to make anybody feel like I'm trolling their team and anything, so I'll be nice.
Almighty Finn's here. Almighty Finn's here. What's up, Moen and Rock and Rant? Just
What's
waiting to
going
get
on,
out to
Almighty Finn?
Indianapolis and have you pay the drinks and fire up a bone, Almighty Finn. That's what I'm waiting on. I'm going to let you know next time I'm coming to Naptown. You be ready. I want that kind. IU and Purdue is only big in basketball. I will tell you this, Finn. I don't know if you watched the IU Purdue football game this year, but Purdue, IU came real close to screwing the pooch on that one. They almost lost to Purdue, and I think Purdue was the worst team in Power 5 last year.
Yeah, they were definitely close, if not at the very bottom. We'll see what happens. New coach, I tend to think that UNLV actually upgraded their coach, getting Dan Mullen when they lost their coach to Purdue, but it doesn't mean that Purdue didn't also upgrade.
Thomas Coker says, Florida State, North Carolina, Virginia, Notre Dame, our fan base shows up. A game at Auburn would be fire. We need to go play the traditional powers like Michigan at Ann Arbor, like Bobby showed us, to get back on top. Okay.
Yeah, anytime, anyone, I think that's always a good way for you to take some beatings if you need to, but level up your game. A lot of programs went down that way. Miami went down that way. Florida State absolutely went down that way when both of those programs were building by nature of being independents, for sure. They were scheduling all over the place and trying to get on the radar.
Man, I hate the fact that money is driving the conference realignment. Conferences should be regional, but those days are over. They are cranky, and I'll tell you why they are over. It is because Notre Dame did not join the Big Ten in the 1990s. I still hold to the fact that if Notre Dame became number 12 in the Big Ten following Penn State, that you would still have a Big 12 with Texas, Oklahoma, Nebraska. You would still have all those regional powers. The Big East and ACC, that was destined to happen. One of them was going to lose out on that, but
yeah,
I think everybody else stays together.
I mean, the Pac-12 could have still stayed a relatively regional conference too. It would have stretched out, but they should have figured out a way to get Texas and Oklahoma when they had the chance, right? It would have been at least time zone manageable, one state adjacent. New Mexico interrupting Texas into Arizona. Could have done it.
Almighty Finn says Michigan needs to come play Florida State in Tallahassee. Florida State's already been to Ann Arbor. Well, Finn, my two favorite teams are Ohio State and whoever's playing against Michigan. So I would be pulling hard for the Seminoles on that one. MBM says cash killed everything great about college football. Again, this is nostalgized, I think, a lot, guys. Sure, there's the way we experience college football was great, but we also have to acknowledge that, as Rock said, we were taking advantage of athletes for the better part of 50 years.
Yeah, look, in this channel, we have a lot of people. We obsess about a lot of things around the world of football, from the games and the players to the business aspect of it. I don't think about money at all when Georgia and Alabama are having that epic second half comeback, and the money wasn't really impacting my brain at all when Northern Illinois was hitting Notre Dame. So like the core of it's still there. We're just also way more aware of everything, right? Just in the world that we live in on the business aspect. So things that we didn't know about, we all know. So I get it. I understand the nostalgia. I'm not saying it's better. I just think it's different. We're just more aware of some of the crazy crap.
I think it went too far to the extreme, and now it's swung back to another extreme.
Yep, absolutely.
I think once it settles down in the middle and we get the most moderate way where these players can make some money, Colleges can make money. Everybody can make money. I'll be honest with you though, MBM. The one thing I hate about cash killing college football, it's too expensive to go to games anymore. It is.
Oh
You
God,
should
yeah.
not have to drop $500 to go see Ohio State play one football game. And I'm telling you, that's not against the great teams. That's against a MAC opponent. You're going to spend $500 getting there, parking, et cetera, concessions. I mean, who the hell wants to go there and pay $12 for an IPA?
Well, got to go to Coastal Carolina game and get some free popcorn this coming season.
Yeah, that's true. Or just smuggle your whiskey in a bladder inside your armpit.
That'll work
Tony
too.
Lawson says Katie Blackburn, Cincinnati Bengals CEO, says the Bengals may move after this season. What gives Mona vision? Well, it's real simple. You see, Katie Blackburn is a C word. Her dad, Mike Brown, is an even bigger C word. And they do this crap every 20 to 30 years. There's nothing wrong with that stadium. They can continue to use that stadium. This is the one thing I hate about the NFL. You have billionaire owners who won't pay to build their own stadium, and they want to foist it upon the taxpayers. And you know what? Ohio State has played in the same stadium for 100 years. I don't understand why NFL teams need to get a new stadium every 20.
Yeah. Well, I have a question for you on that since it's coming up. I read the comments and I was like, wow, that's really lame. I then heard the comments and the context was, to me as a non-fan, very different. Like someone's asked what they would do, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, I mean, I guess we could move. Like I saw it more as like a one hand off thing, not like a threat to move, but I read very differently than I heard it. So I don't know. Did you hear it or you just read it like as a fan of the team?
Well, they do this. This is their song and dance. They did this before the Titans moved to Tennessee. When they wanted that stadium built, the stadium they're in now, it was, we're going to go to Tennessee, we're going to go to Tennessee, we're going to go to Nashville, Tennessee. And that's where we're moving the team to until the voters passed it so they could get a new stadium. They actually ended up getting sued over it because part of the deal on the ballot said they would field a competitive team. And this was in the Cincinnati Bengals year where they weren't fielding competitive shit. And they actually ended up, they had an 8-8 season with, what's his name? Jeff Blake. Jeff Blake was the quarterback, and they had.
I remember Jeff Blake.
Yeah. They had an 8-8 season, and they were able to get that lawsuit thrown out because they had that one 8-8 season, which was a competitive team according to them. Hummus Hero says, are you going to the Buckeye spring game, Mo? And I am not, because I'm getting a back injection that Friday. I don't, those kind of knocked me out for a day or so. So I can't sit in sit comfortably. Let's put it that way. So I will not be attending the spring game this year. Unfortunately, it just kind of worked itself out that way with the health insurance when they cover that shot. Steel Austin says, not sure if you guys saw Dennis Dodd's recent article. I did. But media contracts are expected to significantly increase. CFB media contracts are considered undervalued, and big tech will enter and drive up the cash. Did you see Dennis Dodd's parting salvo?
I did read that, and the estimated valuations. And yeah, I believe that there's upside. I think I was one of the people when everyone's saying that it's a down media market the last 2 years. I was like, I don't think it is. I think people are saying that it's situational and who's available, what you're willing to pay. So I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever if there is a lot of value to be unlocked, and that value could be unlocked at one level without there being any private equity or super leagues. And there's probably other scenarios that unlock additional value. Live sports is still one of the things that guarantees eyeballs at the same time when you're trying to deliver advertising messages one way or the other. So it's a diminishing world that way. So I would think that the value will still continue. I think the NBA deal is proof of that. Granted, that's a global situation and college football rights is more domestic focused only. But somebody, I think maybe it was in that article, just pointed out that, the college football draws more than the NBA does in the U.S. So,
All right, Thomas Code. Let you guys know we got about 15 to 20 more minutes left. I'm going to try to get through as many comments as we can and then jump around a little bit so we can get to some newer comments. If you absolutely positively need to have your comment read, it would have to be a super chat. That's the quickest way to get my attention, but I will try to get to as many as possible before we get out of here. ESPN and Fox have it all worked out. I don't disagree. I think it comes down to more that the Big Ten and the SEC haven't worked out, which Greg agreed on Friday. He came on the show and took that out. Matthew J. Kipp says Florida State to the Big Ten, followed by Almighty Finn saying Florida State to the SEC. Nathan Campbell says, Moan, could you see the academy going to the Big 12 in the package? The service academies, I don't think the service academies will enter into the Power 4 atmosphere. MBM says, does Florida State draw higher ratings than University of Florida? Probably not. But again, MBM, I think we mentioned it a couple times already tonight. I think you can't take the ratings somebody garners in the ACC and expect them to be comparable with what they would gain in the SEC. Florida's got much better matchups in the SEC than Florida State does currently in the ACC. Now, Florida State's is improved by that special deal that Notre Dame got that's going to allow them to play Florida State, Clemson, and Miami more frequently. But, I mean, Florida gets to play Georgia, South Carolina, Alabama, LSU, Texas, Oklahoma. The list goes on and on. So, Florida should be drawing higher ratings because they're getting better matchups.
Yeah, matchups are everything, right? So you can bring your audience, but there's a multiplier effect in any game when your brand and another brand come together and both your fan bases combine, but other fan bases engage.
Hummus Hero says, I think I'd call Notre Dame versus Purdue and Northwestern a traditional series. Not exactly rivals, hammer and nail thing. Purdue, and I believe Notre Dame do consider themselves rivals. Northwestern, they've actually played Northwestern more than they have Stanford. And Stanford is considered a rival, so I'm going to give them Northwestern too. But I see where you're coming from, Hummus Hero. Yes, when we traditionally think Notre Dame rivals, we think in the Big Ten anyway, Michigan, Michigan State, Ohio State even maybe to some extent, even though they haven't beat us since Herbert Hoover was president. BYU football says there are a lot of reasons why the Notre Dame and Michigan game ended.
Yeah. I recall what I know the reason why, because I just did a thing about rivalries recently, but I can't remember in the moment what the story was.
Michigan's afraid. That's what it is. Daniel Gygax says, I still don't think Notre Dame will bend the knee yet. I think they'd be pressed to. I think if you lose Florida State, Clemson, and Miami joins the big, how your media money is going to be so far behind everybody else pretty much. How can you continue on? Notre Dame made the CFP championship game as an independent. I don't see them joining a conference anytime soon. I agree with you, MBM, but you got to remember that NBC media deal is on a sliding scale. It's if you can't schedule exciting matchups for NBC, that money goes down. So that's part of the reason they did that special deal with the ACC to basically get to set their own ACC schedule where they play Stanford every year and it doesn't count as a conference game. And then they play Clemson, Miami, and Florida State. They play two of those teams every year.
Yep, and that was definitely not the case with the rotation among the 16 or 17 other schools.
Thomas Coker says if we get SEC, then our recruiting will boom. I am on the ground here in high school recruiting space. We get SEC, then it's on.
Absolutely. If you're at Florida State and no one can use that as a recruiting thing against you when all things are equal, relationships with coaches, money, and NIL, that's certainly going to help because it's definitely a negatively recruited thing against schools that are trying to compete with the SEC and Big Ten if they're not in those conferences.
Absolutely. Almighty Finn says UF voted yes when Florida State got an invite in '88. They voted to add Texas, even though A&M didn't want them. If ESPN wants FSU, they will keep them. Agreed. 100% agreed, Almighty Finn. I think it increases the value of that. It increases the value of that media package that you get with the SEC network. It allows you to charge a little more for whatever this ESPN direct-to-consumer streaming model we're going to get. So, Daniel Gygax says Notre Dame being in a contiguous state would be to the SEC. You're correct, technically, yes. The southern point of Indiana touches a part of Kentucky, but
I mean, eventually you could do contiguous states to Washington if you wanted to add Wyoming or Idaho from the southeast or come up the coast. So, sure.
Yeah, I mean, we joke all the time, nothing says ACC like Stanford and Cal, two teams on the Pacific Coast. Nothing says Southeastern Conference like South Bend, Indiana.
Yeah, that book, that miniseries that will come out on Netflix one day, it will certainly be interesting just to dive into why the ACC didn't do a ACC Pac-12 kind of thing in a formality ahead of time. Like, there's so many stumbles that it could prevented. If you thought it was bad only getting Stanford and Cal or Washington and Oregon State, wait till you're backfilling with Texas State. No disrespect to Texas State.
Hummus Hero says Texas wanted in the Big Ten before the last round of realignment. Big Ten didn't want Oklahoma back then, and Texas wanted it to be a package. That did happen, but that wasn't because Oklahoma wasn't involved. That was because Texas used it as a proxy to get the Longhorn Network from ESPN. In fact, I don't know if you watched Friday's show with Hummus Hero, but go back and watch that. We had Greg on for a little part of the show towards the end, and he actually brought up an article from 2011 that talked about Oklahoma, Nebraska, Kansas, Iowa State, and A&M coming to the Big Ten before the last round of realignment. They just couldn't make the money work. So it was never about, it wasn't about turning Oklahoma down. They would have taken Oklahoma. It was just Texas used it to get the Longhorn Network in that instance, and in the other instance, the Big Ten just couldn't come up with the money. Movie Time Blues, you guys are ignoring the factor of a hostile relationship between ESPN and the Big Ten. The SEC is basically a proxy for the four-letter. I don't think there's that hostile relationship. And I will add this. Venue Sports, when it came out, who did it include? It included ESPN and Fox Sports.
Correct. And what is the thing that's most rumored? A scheduling agreement between the Big Ten and the SEC. So they're figuring out some way to make money together.
BYU football says the Notre Dame to the Big Ten is all religion driven. Yes, if the religion's making money. Absolutely right. Uga has a fit. If we get into the SEC, we already pull up second in Georgia for the highest recruits in the nation. Again, I think, it's easy to say never, but if somebody comes to you and gives you another extra $20 million to make it happen, it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, I could definitely be bought for $20 million, even if you were rude to me last year.
Mm-hmm. You can punch me in the face for 500. I'm going to punch you back, but you got to give me the 500. ESPN and Fox will divvy up the schools they want to add the conference. We'll agree because they will just fall in line for the cash. Disagree a little bit here. No, I do agree that they're probably going to divvy things up. I do think the Big Ten and SEC on a whole knows what the other one is doing. But again, I think you've got to have you got to meet some kind of standards for those conferences. Washington was an easy add to the Big Ten. You ended up getting a balance. They had to add Oregon, and we'll talk about it. Just come to the show on Thursday night when we're doing that presentation. We'll talk about it, and I can kind of show you guys a little of what the perfect team for the Big Ten is, or at least claims to be, because there are outliers. Oregon is one of those outliers, but they had to take Oregon to get Washington, and they took Oregon. Not without a fight, though. Super chat from our friend Ryan Willie says, nothing says SEC like Columbia, Missouri. Yeah, that was another one. That was another one that wanted to come to the Big Ten. Oh, but they couldn't keep their mouth shut. That's a whole story. You guys can look that up. Missouri president couldn't keep his mouth shut. Jim Delaney got pissed. And they never found their way back in. So
I'll have
thank
to
you
look
for
that
that.
one up. I'm not familiar.
That's an old one. They were bragging to everybody, their boosters and everybody, they were getting into the Big Ten, and needless to say, they didn't, and Nebraska did. So let's give a sound here for our friend Ryan Willie. We can do the Badger. But let's give him a winner as well.
Winner.
Thank you for the super chat, Ryan Willie, and your continued generosity to the channel. It is much appreciated, sir. I hope you join us on Thursday. You're a member. Join us on Thursday for that crowning of the Big Ten contender special that you and myself are going to do for the members only. Okay, we got maybe 10 minutes left, guys. I'm trying to shoot through as many as I can. So we might do these a little rapid fire. Tempest says, I don't see UCF leaving the Big 12. I don't either. And I don't see the Big 12 adding USF either as a result of that. Why doesn't the ACC want Wazoo and Oregon State? They don't move the needle, and they don't have Notre Dame lobbying for them. The only reason Stanford and Cal got in is because Notre Dame pushed that. And they may have just pushed themselves into joining a conference by doing that.
Yeah, I feel like they've taken some really curious steps leading the Pac-12 into their new iteration too. If you read some of the stories out there about, the greed and the approach, and fingers seem to be pointing in that direction from the newer members. So I don't know if the families are having internal wars about who they're adding to the family.
Absolutely. Kenneth Maynor says ACC can survive if they can backfill with Memphis, Tulane, Eastern Carolina to replace North Carolina State, and South Florida to replace Florida State, Miami. Top brands in the American. I don't disagree. And then the American's going to have to backfill. And they're probably going to rob Sun Belt and Conference USA. And those conferences are going to have to backfill. I think eventually, right now we're at like a G7. I think we end up getting back down to a G6 or a G5 when this is all said and done.
I also think the term survive is just interesting, right? In terms of yes, the ACC I think will continue to exist. The thing that I think is a little bit different than the Pac-12 is in the Pac-12, you have two schools Oregon State and Washington State, who are going to take a pretty significant cut from where they were. Stanford and Cal are kind of where they were, but they have inconvenience in terms of travel costs, right? But they're ahead of where the Pac-12 was going to get a deal, and they were ahead of what the old Pac-12 deal was. The ACC situation, though, you could have more than two schools. You could have 6, 7, or 8 schools who are all taking a down round, right? They'll backfill and exist, but they won't be where they were before. But they also have till 2036, right? And the one thing we don't know is whether or not when ESPN extended them, whether there's any mitigation clause if they lose too many schools that would cause them to have a lower funding for a period of that 2036 contract.
Yeah, and I think that's the difference between the ACC and the Pac-12. The ACC does have a media deal. Whether or not it goes up or goes down, they've got a media deal with ESPN, and they're probably going to keep the ACC network. So I think the ACC has a little more stability than the Pac does because they do have a media partner. Almighty Finn says college sports is about love and passion. Pro sports is about business. That's why program try and get new stadiums. College sports is business too. And for a long time, it's been enriching universities. And, it's about time that those players get something beyond just and I understand, yes, I didn't get a full ride scholarship either. It cost me quite a bit in college loans, but I also didn't get hit in the head repeatedly and potentially face lifelong repercussions for it. So,
right. Or do all the work and see my boss make infinitely more than me, as opposed to just like 100x. of a CEO to a worker.
Yeah, and the colleges could have seen this from far away. It just every time it came up, it was no. If they could have said, "Hey, okay, let's start stipends, help stipends, increase stipends," any of that stuff. But when it came to, I mean, literally, kids at Ohio State got suspended for trading trophies and trinkets they received from the program for tattoos.
Yeah.
In fact,
I would say 90%.
Jim Tressel got
those-
fired for it.
Yeah, like 90% of the scandals, if you look back in the last 30 years, essentially rose up from kids not having enough money to survive, either to pay for food in some cases or for their family. All right. While meanwhile, the schools and the conferences and the networks were making bank. So, I will always err more on the side of the players on this one. I just will.
I don't know what your college experience was like, Rock, but I ended up eating a shitload of ramen noodles. I couldn't imagine eating ramen noodles and playing football.
My college situation was very similar. So I went from the work-study job in the dean's office, where I found out what they were going to do to all my friends, to working at a restaurant on campus so I could eat as well as make money. Like, that was it. So I feel yeah.
The Big Lubbock says when the SEC goes to 24, okay, it will be Kansas, Colorado, Utah, and ASU because of their contiguous state rule, and ESPN will want some late night games. Maybe. We'll see. I don't think that's the case, Big Lubbock, but you might be right. I just don't think the SEC goes beyond 20. Mike Brown is the worst owner in the NFL. That's pretty much it. That's why we have the Mike Brown bags.
Can Woody Johnson step into the chat at least?
Yeah. If you guys didn't know, copper wire was invented when Mike Brown found a pen. The left hand picked it up, the right hand wanted it, and today we have copper wire. Almighty Finn says you need to see the Chicago Bears ownership. There you go. Can't disagree with that. That's a dumpster fire for sure. Okay, got about 3 more minutes left. I'm just going to kind of jump around here. Hummus Hero, Kansas could be an option for the SEC, Bob Swanger, especially if they want to continue to grow the basketball dominance. Hello, guys. Beautiful day in Iowa. Go get them, Houston, tomorrow night. Good to see a stormy cyclone. Thanks for stopping in. I got a little ISU cyclone there for you, sir. Hopefully you guys survived any of that nasty weather you got out there in Iowa way. Did Duke choke last night? Absolutely.
Unquestionably.
There's no other way to say it. That was a choke.
Houston took it from them. Their hands were around their neck, but one of those hands was Duke's hand helping.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I know people are going to complain about the foul situation, but regardless, you don't let a team go up on a 9-0 run at the end of a game.
Correct.
Tom Dubay says ACC erred in not adding UConn over Boston College. Boston College had a football stadium, though. And Connecticut's one of those college football programs that desperately needs a stadium and doesn't have one. They got one 30 miles away from campus that's made of brick. Let me see here. Hummus Hero. Missouri actually isn't really Midwest or Southern. I think they fit in the Big 12, SEC, or Big. I just want to see Missouri versus Kansas come back as a regular rivalry. Kenneth Maynard says ECU is an underrated football brand, average about 40K in attendance and always competitive. I like the Pirates myself.
One of the better logos.
Choke at the Doke was epic. And it's just great because it rhymes so much. David Tepper as an NFL owner is loved. There's a lot of shitty NFL owners. Let's just be honest. But yeah. I mean, they don't care about putting a winning team on the field. They care about lining their pockets.
Yeah. But Tepper, you've only had to suffer with for several years. The Jets have suffered with Woody Johnson for 20. The Bengals fans have suffered with the Browns for existence, essentially, right? The Bears have suffered for a long time as well recently. Well, that doesn't make any sense, but you know what I meant.
Aren't they all made of brick and concrete? They are, but they all don't look like ass. I mean, UConn's football stadium looks like a high school football stadium. And I don't even mean a good football high school
Not
football
even like a
stadium.
Texas high school stadium.
There's high school stadiums here in Ohio that look better than UConn's football stadium. It's just again, you want to call them up to the ACC, great. They've got a great basketball program. Their stadium situation for football is terrible. They need to get with the state of Connecticut and come up with some way to build a better football program for them or football facilities for them than that stadium. And like, look up Texas high school football stadiums, guys. It's no joke. 28-point lead in the fourth quarter, and UF blew it. Then we won fifth quarter at the French Quarter. You guys got some interesting game names there, Tempest. We have play names. Ours are mostly plays, like 85 yards through the heart of the South, or the catch, the PI call.
FSU made it easy for Miami. It just wide something.
Antoine Johnson says Michael Bidwell is the worst NFL. Listen, guys, we're all fans of terrible NFL teams for the most part. Let's just accept it. We are.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of Chiefs fans chiming in here that up much.
Listen, Cincinnati was in a Super Bowl just a few years ago, but Mike Brown not wanting to keep any of the defense around led to one of the worst defenses in the league last year. But don't worry, he signed both Chase and Higgins, so that'll help the defense a lot this season. Tempest says wide left and right. Wide left and wide right I do know about. Block at the Rock. Man, these guys got some cool names. I'll rhyme too. Chris G says the trend has been for college football programs to hire GMs. Do you think that trend continues? I do.
Absolutely.
And if you've been following Cal, guys, Cal boosters are not happy. Ron Rivera is the GM. They want him to have total control like Andrew Luck has at Stanford. And they have said basically we're cutting off the money until it happens. So I don't know if Cal's going to blink. They obviously don't take their athletics very seriously. It's what made them such an unattractive candidate the last go round. I don't know if they're ever going to fix that or if they're just going to give up on sports altogether.
I think you'll have a mix of the two models that you see in the NFL. You have most NFL teams that are GM led, but you have several where the coach is leading it, the organization essentially, and sometimes you have split reporting structures. I think you'll see all versions of that in college, but the GM won't just be the guy organizing stuff for the coach anymore.
Absolutely. We got one more here. We'll finish it up with Tempest. Hope all is well from all the storms. Yes. Thoughts and prayers go out to everybody affected by these line of storms that came through the Midwest this week. It was terrible. We've got a lot of flooding around here, but some places a little further south got it much, much worse. So hopefully everybody keep their heads up down there, and hopefully the government is quick and efficient for a change and gets relief down there as quickly as possible. Rock, what is your last call for the evening, sir? Last call.
Just seeing what's going on with Cal, I think is super interesting. And yeah, I'm insane like a lot of you sickos. I'm going to pay attention to as much as I can tomorrow of the stream, hoping to get that stream actually from Zoom and be able to show it, if only just to get watch hours. But either way, I'm sure we'll all be chiming in about it throughout the day and see whether it lives up to the hype or is the nothing burger, or as we said at the beginning of the show, the beginning of something. I'm certainly curious about what ramifications happen right after. I do have a feeling we're going to hear a lot of news this week post the hearing, but we'll see.
Absolutely. There's several. Are you guys covering it on College Football Express tomorrow?
We are going to try to get the Zoom in there. If not, I'll probably check in here or there on it. But like ultimately, I'm trying to figure out a path through that to get the Zoom live stream in and just keep it going. But we will see whether I am successful in navigating to one of the 1,000 there.
All right, there you go, guys. If you're bored tomorrow, or if you just don't want to do work because fuck the company, it's Monday. You don't work on Mondays. Just sip your coffee, put that on. Should be good.
You don't have to even pay attention. Just keep it running for 7 hours. Like you use the hours.
Keep running it for 7 hours so it helps their analytics over on the College Football Express. My last call for the evening is I want to thank everybody who joined us on a Sunday. Had over 100 people here at one point. That was very cool. I want to welcome all the new members, those who joined tonight, and those who were gifted memberships. Especially want to thank Ryan Willie and MBM for the super chats. MBM, Ryan Willie, you guys are my hero. You are the wind beneath my wings. You are the rocks in my scotch on the rocks. Thank you both so much for that. Let me see, anything else? I think that ought to do it for me. For myself, for Rock and Rant, let's do the hurricane thing for him one more time, since that's a new one on the soundboard. Oh, by the way, comments, guys. Any sound effect you want to hear on here you think would be a good addition to the board, drop that in the comments, guys. I will listen. I'm not going to guarantee I get them all on there, but I will try to get as many of them as I can on there. That way, when you make a super chat or gift a membership or become a member or pop your membership, I can use that sound for you. But until then, until next Sunday.
Stand back. There's a hurricane coming through.
It's out.
Gotta love it.